everyone, and thank you for joining me today. This is Sharon from Paper Crafts from the Heart, and I am back again this month with the My Scrappy Life card challenge. I've gone ahead and found a card off of Pinterest to use for my inspiration, and this is something kind of different, and it looked kind of fun. I saw a close to my heart consultant do this on her Facebook page, and then I went onto Pinterest to find some more information about it. And it's this thanks friend card right here. And I have a couple different inspirations that I pulled to use for this, so I'll post them all in the comments below. But basically, we're going to take a sheet of acetate and attach paper strips to it, and then go ahead and cut out the circles, and it kind of gives like a floating effect on your page. So I've gone ahead and already attached it to my layout using, not to my layout, to the size I want to use on my layout, sorry. Using an 8.5 by 11 sheet of, it's actually overhead transparency that I'm using as my acetate, and it looks like this. And I'm going to go ahead and use a 7-inch circle and cut around it, but real quick on just a scrap sheet of acetate, I'm going to show you how I went ahead and did that. You're going to need some kind of mat with lines on it. I'm going to use my Close to My Heart Versamat. I also have this type of mat, my glass craft mat on my desk that could use, or if you don't have anything like that, you can also use a piece of grid paper. Now, what I read on Pinterest said to use a roller, a tape adhesive, but I actually used liquid glass from Close to My Heart. You could probably also use glossy accents and get the same effect. And what I did is I cut various strips of paper into sizes that are 1/2, 1/4, and 3/8. And I just alternated them. On my layout, I actually am using 3 different shades I'm going to use. But just to show you, I have some scraps here that I cut. And I'm just going to quickly show you how I attach them to my layout, because if I showed you the whole thing, we'd be here forever. So you're just going to line it up onto the grids. And I'm going to start at the very top, because when we cut the shape, we don't want the acetate to be the very top or bottom thing that we see. And then I kind of just use the grid lines. Once you get the first one on there too, it's a lot easier, because then you have something to work with and you can see better. So once you get the first one on, then you're just going to kind of alternate using different shades. I'm going to do like 2 or 3 strips just to show you, so you guys get the idea. And then alternating the sizes too, just to give it a different look. And again, you can cut these strips in whatever sizes you want. I just used those measurements because that is what was on the blog that I read, and I figured it was a good starting point. So here you go. You can see I have my the 3 strips on, and then you're just going to keep kind of alternating them all the way down, just like this, kind of changing up the sizes as you go, and you'll continue to the end. When you get to the end, again, it will look like this for a layout, and then of course smaller if you want to do it on a card. And the next thing I'm going to do is flip this over to the back side. And I went ahead and cut out a 7-inch circle. I used my Cricut to cut it, but you could use a plate or like any kind of circle cutter. I cut mine out of acetate just so I have it and I can keep reusing it. And I'm going to go ahead and line it up here. I'm actually going to put a piece of scrap wood paper underneath so I can see a little bit better where my circle is. And I'm going to use a black Sharpie just so my lines will show up on the acetate. And I want to make sure my circle starts and ends on a strip of paper and not on the clear acetate. It just gives a better look to it when you cut it out. So I'm going to go ahead, like I said, and trace around the circle. And next thing I'm gonna do is just cut the circle out. I let mine dry overnight just because I was working on some other things, but it dried pretty quick using the liquid glass. Alright, and then you'll have some leftovers to use, and I'm going to use this to make a card. I'll show you that at the end. And then when you flip it over, this is how your circle is going to look. When you attach it to your layout, you're going to flip it back over again, and where the paper is, that's where you're going to attach your foam 3D adhesive to pop it up on your page and give it the floating effect to it. And we'll be right back with all the rest of the pieces to my layout, and I'll show you how I'm going to go ahead and assemble my layout. Okay, I have all my pieces set for my layout. I am using an older paper collection from Close to My Heart called Brushed. Unfortunately, this paper collection is retired, but that is what I had to try to work with the mood board colors that we had for this month. So we are using the Green Apple, Lagoon, White Daisy. I added some toffee just because I felt like it needed a little bit of a neutral. So I went through and I found this layout using a big circle element on it that was perfect for this from the Close to My Heart Make It From Your Heart Volume 5. Unfortunately, this book is retired, but you'll get the idea from my layout, and you can, everybody knows how to scrap lift, so you'll be able to figure it out. If you have any questions about measurements, just message me and I'll be happy to answer the questions for you. I went ahead and distressed all my pieces except the acetate one using the toffee ink because it felt like it needed something. I'm going to be using a 4x6 photo, but I trimmed it down a quarter to about 3 3/4 by 5 3/4 so it would fit on a 4x6 photo mat. So I'm going to go ahead and mat my picture in some toffee cardstock. I'm using the lighter tone side of the Close to My Heart cardstock for this. Then I went through my embellishments and pulled out some wood grain pieces that I think went well with this layout. Most of these pieces in the wood grain are retired, but now they come in more of a wood grain paperboard, so they're not as bulky, so those are a good substitution, and I'll link those below just in case you're interested. I'm going to go ahead and attach my first piece at about 3 3/4 from the bottom. Of course, my glue bottle decides to clog on me. There we go with our first piece. When I was trying to pull out papers for this month's mood board, I discovered I do not have a lot of greens in my paper collection. So green, I guess, is not a color I tend to gravitate towards. So this was a little challenging for me. I don't know why, because I don't feel like I have anything against the color green. Either that or I use it up really quick when I get it. One or the other. Not sure. We're going to layer this one on top. You're going to want to leave a little bit up at the top part and not adhere it down all the way, because we are going to tuck the circle a little bit under it, and I'm just going to line this up with the middle point of my dovetail here. I'm going to come in with a little bit of toffee just to add a little bit of a neutral color. I just needed something else when I was laying it out. I tried gray, but that didn't seem to work. So I think the toffee helps with the wood grain embellishments. They kind of ties it all together. There. And we're going to add another strip after we adhere this of the lagoon pattern paper across the very top of the page. I just bought refills for my tape runner, and I discovered that when I started to film this video that I left them in my trunk. So we're just using this double-sided tape to make it work for now. It's snowing out here again, and I don't feel like running out in the cold and digging it out. That's a little bit crooked. There we go. I'm gonna go ahead, it looked a little plain when I put this on, so I think I'm gonna do a few little ink splatters using some clover and lagoon just to add a little something to this black background. So I'm just gonna use my clover and lagoon ink pads and my water brush to do some quick splatters on this white. I don't think it needs a full mixed media background, just a little something to break up all this white. Now, if you're using the wood grain pieces and decide you want to have some color on them, you could easily take them and that leftover ink I had on there, you could rub those on there and the wood grain will soak up the color and you can customize the color of your embellishments as well. So next thing we're going to do is pull out some of our foam 3D tape and we're going to attach it onto these strips on the back side where it's covered completely in the acetate, just across the back to give it some dimension so it appears to be kind of floating on our paper. And if you line it up on the paper strips, you won't be able to see it when you adhere it to your page. I'm kind of doing every other strip to start with to see if I need to add more or not. Okay, let's see how that looks before I start to peel them off. And stuck my paper down a little too soon, so let me find my Cricut tool to peel this up a little bit. So it's gonna sit I'm gonna go ahead and just trim a strip off because I didn't leave enough room to tuck mine. So it's gonna sit about there with the photo there. So I think that's enough 3D adhesive. So I'm gonna go ahead, peel it off and stick that down. Go ahead and center that there, attach that back. And I'm gonna have to put a little strip of foam adhesive at the bottom of my paper to just the bottom of the photo on the mat so that it sits up at the same height as this circle here. Otherwise it'll be a little bit lopsided. Go. And then I cut this little strip and dovetailed it from the toffee. I used the Loving Right Now stamp set, and I used the Feeling stamp from right here, and the Shoelace Alphabet to stamp Lucky, and I'm going to use Feeling Lucky as my title. I also distressed this with the toffee ink, and I'm going to go ahead and add a little foam to this too, just to pop it up a little bit. There's the title, and then I'm going to come back in with my embellishments. I like to attach these using the little tiny glue dots. I think you get the best, especially on these little bitty pieces. So we're going to add a few stars up here. Top. And another little bitty one to create our little embellishment triangles. Also do this on the bottom. Here. And I pulled out a few arrows that I'm also going to add. One across the bottom here. Using some Lagoon and Clover ink, I'm going to come in and just add a few little phrases. Around the top here. This one just says incredible moments. Anytime your kids are together smiling and not fighting and you get a decent picture. Kind of is an incredible moment in my book, and they get harder and harder, seems like, the older they get. 11 right now. Just some cute little phrases that are on the stamp set that I thought would add something to this layout. I'm gonna come in with the last little arrow. Not really sure where I want to add it exactly. I want it on here, or I think I like it there. Yeah, I like it at the top better, so we're gonna go ahead and stick it up there at the top. Okay, and there we go. That completes the layout, and you can see, hold it up a little bit, how the acetate sits up a little bit, and it kind of gives it that floating look. I'm gonna go ahead and show you some cards too that I made with my scraps. Here's a look at 2 of the cards I made also using this technique. I used the scraps from the acetate sheet that I used on my 12 by 12 layout and cut out the circle. I just traced it on the back of the acetate sheet just like I did on my layout and cut it around. It's not a perfect circle, but once it's on the card, you cannot tell that it's got a few little imperfections. And I just added a few little die cuts and some little blings that I've had forever in my stash that I wanted to get rid of. And on the white, I just ran it through my embossing machine just to add a little bit extra to this card. And on this one, I made a slimline card and I cut the hearts out also, and same on both of the cards. I did go ahead and attach the foam adhesive on the back just to give it a little bit of dimension, and I'm happy with the way everything turned out. It's a different look, something I've never tried before. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I look forward to crafting with you soon.